I don't really know how difficult this video is going to be for me to get through, but I'm going to try my best. For those who may not know, on May 25th, George Floyd was murdered. He was accused of using a $20 counterfeit bill. The cops were called, and he was detained. An officer, whose name I do not care to speak out of my mouth, placed him on his chest with his hands cuffed behind him, facing to the pavement, and put a knee to the back of his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Now, I just watched the video for the first time. I've obviously known the story, I've read about it, I've seen the pictures, but I kind of just, it was so much ugly in the world constantly that I didn't really want to watch the video. But I felt it was kind of my responsibility to watch it, and I can't tell you how disgusting it is. There's tons of questions that just come up as you watch that video, and it breaks your heart to see it happen. But what breaks my heart even more is that this is one of the weird times where everyone has been able to come together and see that there's something wrong, see the problem. The first time in United States history that all 50 states have come together to protest a thing. But in a time where unity is demanded, we have found a way to do what America does best and become divided. All over social media, all over Facebook, all over Instagram, I'm seeing opposing opinions, people who are on the same side, good people versus good people, having these arguments that are just missing one little piece of the puzzle. We're all heading the same direction. We want to get to the same place, but we're so busy fighting each other, we can't ever get to the destination. And so instead of spending so much of my energy fighting these people online and trying to convince them otherwise, the same repeated arguments over and over again, I decided to get a list of these arguments, compile them together in a video, and fair warning, this is going to be a long video. But I will be breaking it down into sections and maybe releasing individual sections. But I just want to share with you some of the points that I keep hearing and then kind of my response to those points. So thank you for being here. I hope you listen. I hope you learned something. There's also going to be a written piece that's probably going to be a lot more articulate than what I'm going to say. I'm probably going to end up rambling and going on for too long. So I'll be attaching that piece if you'd rather just read this yourself. It's a lengthy piece as well, but you can probably get through it faster than this video. So here we go. The protests/riots are only going to make racism worse. I was having a talk with my girlfriend, and she had a valid concern. She was afraid that with everything going on, these riots or protests that were turning into riots were only going to make the situation worse. She said it was going to make the white community just not like blacks more, and she felt that was unfair and unjust. She knew that there were going to be some bigots out there who look at this situation and go, yeah, see, I told you so. That's how they behave. And that's a valid concern, and I get it. But there's one piece that she was missing. We're not trying to fight racism. We're trying to fight racism in power. Prejudice has been here since the beginning of time. It's never going away. It's always going to be here. Okay? Because the idea that you were superior than someone because of the color of your skin, that's a mental defect. That's a flawed way of thinking. If you scrutinize that with any level of rationality, you're not going to come to a logical conclusion. It's nonsense. So we can't get rid of that. You want to stay in your house, you want to say nigga this, nigga that, by all means, do you. This is a country of free speech. Say and feel what you want to feel. The issue is when you are given power over me or power over someone else. Now, in the specific case of cops, which is applicable to the particular George Floyd case, we give them this token of authority. We say, look, you have to listen to what this says. And then we give them a killing device that says, if you don't listen to what this says, you're going to meet the consequences of that. Now, this is fine if it's given to a good cop. But in way too many cases, we see it given to bad cops. People who have personal agendas, who have a bias and a hate in their heart. And now they have control over someone else's life. We need to implement a system, a series of checks and balances that hold cops accountable to the people they are supposed to be protecting and serving. We agree to them having that authority and that power, but it's under the stipulation that they are here to protect and serve. We should not have to ask, who are they protecting and who are they serving? You have a right to your ignorance, but you do not have a right to my life. If Black Lives Matter, then why is there so much black on black crime? Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because, quite honestly, there's not a lot of meat to that bone. The idea that because we have crimes within our community, this lessens our claim to justice is absurd. The definition of justice, deriving from the word justice, based on or behaving according to what is morally right and fair. Okay, justice knows no skin color, which begs the question as to why my people are having such a difficult time getting their slice of that pie. Now, the black community does have its fair share of issues. There is black crime. This is true. And if you want to take that zealousness you feel, if you actually think it's a problem, then help us figure that out as well. But what you're doing is a diversion tactic. You have nothing valid to say at what's actually being discussed, so you're going to bring up something that is a true claim. There is black on black crime, and that is an issue. But you're going to create a false connection between that and Black Lives Matter, what this movement stands for. You're going to make us defend that before we can fight for this. I'm not going to play that game. We have a problem at hand, and that is true. If you want to claim that somehow the fact that we have black on black crime is going to get in the way of this, we'll go ahead and put it on a sticky note and put it into the box of problems that we will get to eventually. But right now, we've already picked ours. George Floyd, police brutality, justice for my people. That's what we're focusing on. Do not bring up another problem until I hear a solution. I was about to cuss you out. Had to hold back. Thugs, rioting, and looting is where your protest loses credibility. To be honest, I think this one hurts me the most. Okay, this one pains me because the language of your is implicit of a concrete divide. It lacks ownership. Okay, this is not my protest. This is our protest. And when I say our, I do not mean just me and my brothers and sisters of color. That's not what I mean. I mean we as the American people. Justice for all. We all live in America, which makes this an American problem. Justice and equality is for the people of America, for those who are human. So when you say your protest, what you're essentially saying is, I don't think we're both American. You guys are fighting for equality, but I'm not. That doesn't really make sense. And what I hear a lot is I hear all lives matter. Now, I think it's been enough time that most people have seen a lot of the explanations of why all lives matter is an offensive term. But I'll give you one that I actually really liked. Saying all lives matter as a response to Black Lives Matter is like saying the fire department should spray down all houses in the neighborhood, even though only one house is on fire, because all houses matter. Yes, your house matters too, but my house is currently on fire. I think it's a great one that explains it. However, for the sake of this argument, let's go ahead and play along. If all lives matter, which they do, why are you not as upset as we are? Because what we're upset about is it feels like our lives don't matter. But all lives do. So shouldn't we have a system that behaves in a way that shows it cares for every life equally? If you have ever put up all lives matter, I hope that means that you have been outraged over what is happening. Because then you could back up the term. And now I want to talk about those damn thugs. Here's what you have to understand. Black Lives Matter is not supportive of riots. They are supportive of peaceful protests. Okay, this is what they stand for. Now, unfortunately, a select few have taken it upon themselves to begin acting in violent ways. There has been looting, there has been arson, burglary. I get it. Some of these protests have turned into riots, but in the same way that the murderous cop does not become the standard that we can apply to every single cop, it does not make a few cops do not make all cops bad. Some of the people, a small percent compared to the astonishing number of peaceful protesters have taken upon themselves to act out in violence. They use this moment as an opportune time to act in ways of selfishness and greed. Anyone who's walking out with a 70-inch TV, they are not a part of the movement. They are using the movement. And I want to repeat that. They are using the movement. They are not the movement. That generalization is not fair. Black Lives Matter stands for peaceful protest. That is the aim. Those who take it upon themselves to get violent are not the spokespeople, both in actions and words, for the rest of this very, very valid movement. I'm okay with peaceful protest, but I just don't see a point in rioting. Now, this one comes from a sincere place. I really get this one. Every person who has had this sentiment on their heart that I've personally spoken with really meant well. And I get it. They want to see change just as badly as we do. And it's difficult to see the positive side of a riot. But the first thing I want to make very clear is that I do not condone violence. I am not a fan of violence. I believe there are wiser ways to make change. I believe there's wiser ways to make a statement. I am full-blown against violence. But this is not about us accepting or condoning different methodologies. This is about us understanding them, understanding the source and where they come from. And I think that it is a necessary thing for the leaders in our society, both present and future, to always ask the question, why? Why are people rioting? Why are they looting? What do they want? What are they seeking? What is it they're saying that I should be hearing? Now, a lot of people have been using Martin Luther King recently, and they're trying to say that he was a nonviolent man who stood against violence. He was very much for peace, and that's 100% true. But they're not really digging deep into what Martin Luther King said on the topic. So I've got this piece here. This is from Martin Luther King. It is not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without at the same time condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are the things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellions to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., The Other America, March 14th, 1968. We have to understand what the stakes are here. My people feel as if their lives do not matter. We have tried every other approach. When we kneel, it's not the time or place. If we get an award and we use that opportunity to speak on something, well, we're not trying to hear that right now. So I have to ask you the question of how long, if someone were to take someone you love, someone in your family, and just take them out there and just murder them in cold blood, how long could you be silent? If someone were to then just ignore your pleas, how long could you be tame? If certain people were to cheer on the deaths of those that you love, how long could you be a good little boy and maintain your manners? We have to understand what's happening. My people feel as if they do not matter. No one is hearing us. We have tried every way. We've tried peaceful, and it's still happening. And some people say this is okay. How long can that happen before a person gets violent? I am a peaceful man. But my core thing is I protect. Take those around me, those in my tribe, those who are innocent, and I protect them. If someone were to drag you in the street and essentially lynch you unjustly, how soon until my words are not enough? How soon until I say, I need to intervene? This is unacceptable. How long does it take for a person to be driven to complete anger and to complete violence in the name of defending those who he loves, those who are innocent? You may not agree with violence, but you have to understand how we got here. It is imperative that you understand that. If you believe in defending the innocent, then speak up. And if someone is out there angry and they're driven to violence, understand that they did speak up and no one listened. It is not your job to criticize the reaction to a problem you refuse to acknowledge. Those are not my words. But it's so true. You have to address the cause before you condemn the effect. I I understand that disciplinary action is still necessary. I get it. Just because someone becomes violent, no matter the reasons, I understand that we have to take care of that. Those are those checks and balances that we were talking about. But what we need to do, it is only our responsibility to look at how did we get here? What made them become violent? This is how you make change. This is what wisdom is. If you're only reacting to the effect, but you're not looking at the cause, we're going to go in a circle. Because your violence will lead us to know that we're not being listened to. That creates more violence. Nothing changes if you have that mindset. So when people ask the question of what does a riot accomplish, I then want to go into this portion of it. In 1966, Dr. Martin Luther King led the Chicago Freedom Movement. Now, I don't want to get into the specifics of it. You can look it up yourself. But this movement, what it did was essentially allow people of color fair housing. Now, in 1966, he tried to get this pushed. It did not. It was the most filibustered bill in U.S. history. Now, the king was assassinated in 1968. The nonviolent man fell to violence. What ensued were 2 weeks of some of the biggest riots we have ever seen, some of the largest unrest we had seen since the Civil War. Riots that we haven't even come close to hitting. This revived the bill that Dr. King could not get pushed through. The government had these riots pretty much knocking on their door, and they were forced to listen. The bill that Dr. King could not get passed when he was alive was passed within weeks. April 10th, 1968, by a wide margin. Look, you may not agree with the methodology. You may be against violence. I certainly am myself. But what you cannot ignore is that when people revolt, the world listens. They hear us. And it is our job to then decide what we do with that message. We have to understand the cause and attack that before we criminalize the effect. You're white, so you don't get a say in this movement. Now, this one's primarily for my brothers and sisters. Okay, now I understand that we've dealt with some infuriating stuff. Racism seems to be rampant. I have been called nigger more times than I care to discuss. I get that. But you do not fight segregation with segregation. Like I said earlier, this is not black versus white. This is racist versus anti-racist. This is an American problem. If what we're talking about is identity politics, you cannot because you are not. And quite frankly, it's not conducive to the world that we want to live in. Okay, now if you look at every moment in history, every significant movement, or at least a movement that got itself heard, that had a message and people listened somewhat, or at least heard it. Colin Kaepernick kneeling. There were white people who kneeled with him. Or people who just weren't black who kneeled with him. You look at Dr. King marching. It wasn't all black people out there. There were white people. Joaquin Phoenix wins an Oscar. He uses that time to speak up and use his platform for people who don't have that same platform and who can't speak up. You do not need to be oppressed to speak up against oppression. Wrong is wrong. I believe there is a social responsibility to use the privileges that we have, and by privilege I mean blessings that you might have that others do not, to build those up around us. That's how we become stronger. Because one day, if you do that, one day, someone's going to come along and they're going to have a blessing or a privilege that you don't have, and they're going to use that and they're going to build you up. We all get stronger together. That's how we make change. And there's a responsibility that when someone lends their hand, that you be able to take it. Remove your pride, accept the fact that they might have an advantage that you do not have. Let's use that for the greater good. That's how we move forward. We need everyone in this struggle. It is important, however, that I clarify that we are not a charity case. We are not a damsel in distress. White people do not need to come in and save us. The fight has started. We are marching. We are heading towards our destination. But we can be even stronger if we have you there. And that's the point of all this. However, What I must point out, if you are not of black skin, do not invalidate the struggle. Do not tell us that our oppression is not is fabricated. It is not. Do not speak from experiences that you yourself have no business speaking from. This is not a moment to pretend you know what it's like to be black. This is a moment for you to look at us and say, I see you, I hear you, I see the problem, and I'm here for it. Let me know where I can help, and I'm ready to go. I'm crouched. Let's sprint to that destination together. Why George Floyd? Now, I keep seeing a good number of people ask this question. What's so special about George Floyd? And this one's a little weird because at the end of the day, I'm asking the question, why does it matter? Out of all the things that you're seeing happening, the validity now of our claims, why does it matter if it's George Floyd to you? Is that somehow going to change your opinion? George Floyd is a unique case because it allowed the world to listen. It brought us together because for once, there weren't really two sides to this coin. You looked at the video, you saw that it was wrong. You now understood. For a lot of people, George Floyd's case, that video that was released, it clicked. They got to go, oh, they weren't making this up. This shit does happen. George Floyd's case was unique in that way because almost all of the other cases had so much polarization. So many people saying, nah, that wasn't really a problem. The cop kind of had it. The cop was right. Other people saying the cop was completely wrong. George Floyd's case allowed us to go, nope, that's clear cut. For once, we get to all be on the same side. Now, I also see a lot of people bringing up his criminal background, which is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. It kind of goes back to the whole black on black crime thing. Are you suggesting because he has a criminal background that he is also not able to partake in this whole justice and equality thing? There are some of the worst humans that we have seen premeditated. Buy a gun, plan it out, send some love letters along the way, and go into a place and just shoot it up. Movie theaters, country concerts, black churches, they go in there with the intention to murder. And they are happy to do so. They are alive. George Floyd is not. There is a problem with that. Now, I also want to specify that George Floyd is only the tip of the iceberg. There's a couple other names here that I want to just point out. We have Ahmaud Arbery, John Crawford, Pamela Turner, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, and George Floyd. These are also just the tip of the iceberg. These are in no specific order. None of them are less or more important than the others. And the list goes on and on and on and on. That could be a whole separate video. We are not raising George Floyd on the content of his character. We're raising him up because he was another black man who suffered, a black person who suffered an injustice that we continue to see. We are hoping that his name is the last name we have to shout before change is made. And a criminal background does not change the validity of that claim. It's another diversion tactic and another way of pointing out a problem instead of being there for the solution. LGBTQ, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. I felt it was important to point out that Black lives are not the only ones who suffer from oppression. We're not the only people who have been victimized. Okay, we're fighting for this cause because, as I said earlier, justice knows no skin color. It also knows no sexuality, no background. Justice is a human right. Equality is a human right. And I point out specifically LGBTQ because it breaks my heart that this is happening during Pride. In a moment where we should be celebrating a spectrum of love and uniqueness, there is this heavy, heavy shadow that is just kind of plowing right through it. And all I can say is that I hope that what we fight for is a platform that brings a level of justice and equality that is applicable to all sections of humanity, all factions of people. It extends even further. There are Hispanics, there are Asians, the deaf community. There's so many other names. That's not even all of it. There are more. There's a bigger picture of oppression. There's so many under this umbrella, and although this is happening during Pride, I want us to remain hopeful because we are fighting for you the same way we are fighting for us. We understand that the oppression extends beyond us. Now, we love the fact that you guys are being there for us. You march with us. You feel for us. Your heart is in the right place for us. We love that you stand with us. And when the need comes, although I pray it does not, we will stand with you. This is not just about us. This is about tackling a system that allows for oppression, that doesn't have the proper checks and balances against oppression. And when we conquer that, when we get to that point, that love is going to be for everybody. So again, I say LGBTQ, and I understand that there's other letters that go into that. It's a little difficult because I don't want to tell your story because I'm not a part of that community. But all I want to say is that we hear you, we stand with you, and we love you. Those who are not Black, what can you do? Now, this one, I've had a lot of people asking this question, a lot of people coming to me and just kind of wondering, they just feel very lost in the way of like, what can I do to help? One, I want to say that if you're asking that question, or if your heart is hurting for what you see happening right now, you finally discovered the problem and you feel that pain, you are so many steps ahead of some of the people I've had a discussion with. That is a good place to start. Unfortunately, it's not enough, but that's a great place to start. The idea is to become sympathetic to what is happening, to educate yourself, to be open to the possibility that there is a side of America that you did not understand before. And although you might be late to the party, we are very, very happy to see you. Another thing I want to make very, very clear is that I am not a spokesperson for all of the Black community. I know I'm speaking kind of as if I am. I believe I have some pretty solid points. I believe I have a strong opinion. I believe it's well-founded. But ultimately, I am just one Black man in this Black community. And that there's not a blanketed statement that will work for every single Black person. There's not a blanketed way to approach them. All of our needs are infinitely customizable. So that's the first thing to realize. But what I will give you are two of the things, one being helpful, one being hurtful, that I personally have experienced and found for myself. The first one is, if you are someone who exhibits a concern for me naturally, regardless of what is causing the distress, reach out to me. I understand. I love it. I feel the love from you. I'm willing to give the love in return. I recognize that you're just worried about me. This means that if you hear that there were LA fires, oh, Freddie lives in LA, I'm gonna hit him up. That makes sense. If you hear there's an earthquake in LA, oh, Freddie's in LA, I want to make sure he's okay. Let me send a little text. That makes sense. This is good. You were doing the right thing. But however, if you were not someone who would normally reach out regardless of the distress, if there's fires, if there's earthquakes, regardless of what's happening, if it might endanger my life, you normally wouldn't reach out, don't reach out to me now. Because what's happening there is that you're not reaching out for me, you're reaching out for you. You're doing that to assuage this sickening feeling that you have. You hate what's happening, and now you want to feel good because you reached out to one of the Black people that you knew. But you normally wouldn't. Again, that is not for me. That's for you. And one thing I have to make clear is I do not want to talk about my current conditions to make you feel better. I've got way too much going on for that. This, however, does not mean that you cannot be an ally. I may not need you, but we need you. So what you do in that case is you make sure to educate yourself, attack the source, equip yourself with the necessary tools to be the ally that we need. I'm going to be putting a list of films, plays, books. This is not a list that I got together. A good friend of mine, Angela, she went and used her platform and got a bunch of ideas from people. I'm gonna attach that list so that you can start at least the education process. Then you want to vote in your offices, march with the people, use your different platforms to speak up. And if you find yourself wanting to reach out to someone who might be affected by all of this, who's in the Black community, and you've definitely checked your relationship with them and your intentions, and you've made sure that you know that you've earned that vulnerability, if you don't know how to talk with them, that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I must again insist that this is not about knowing what it's like to be Black. It's okay if you don't. We just need you to know what justice and equality is, what decency is, because that's what we're fighting for. So I tell you that if you want to reach out to somebody, it's okay to just simply say, hey, I don't really know how to help. I don't know exactly what you need. But if I can give anything to you that may help you, please know that I'm here. That's it. And they get to tell you what they need. It could be a hug. It could be they want to vent. It could be that they don't need anything from you at all. Just ask. That's okay. You ain't got to solve the problems. You ain't got to fix them. Just let them know you're here to help the best that you can. That's perfectly fine. We appreciate you being here. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. This one's super quick. A lot of people are given so much criticism on how certain people are handling this, right? People are very quick to look at it and say, well, that's not the proper way to do it. You need to do it another way. If you kneel, unacceptable. I spoke about this earlier. If you speak at an award show, no, that ain't the time or place. Everyone is quick to tell you how not to do something, but no one seems to be able to give us the proper answer of how to do something. So if you got the solution, by all means, speak up. We'd love to hear it. We're not picky about how change is made. We just want it to happen. But I think you'll be hard-pressed. If you really think about it and you're honest with yourself, you'll be hard-pressed to find a way that we have not tried. And yet we are still at this point. Do not be someone who only brings up problems. Be someone who also brings up solutions. Lastly, we love you. If you made it this far in the video, you are so appreciated. You already taken the first step, and it's a big step. This is a long video. I get it. This is a lot of information coming at you. This is a lot of opinions. And this whole environment is a lot of unprecedented area where a lot of people are acknowledging things they haven't acknowledged before, or they're finally standing up for things they didn't before. If you made it this far, we appreciate you. You're someone who's trying to help, and that is all that we can ask, is that every person does their best to have a part in this movement. And the parts are all so very different. As long as you are trying, which getting to the bottom of this video means you have to be in somewhat. As long as you are trying, you are loved and you are appreciated, and we need you, and we're so happy that you are here. I want that to be the biggest message. Even when we're fighting against each other, even if we don't understand each other, we all want the right thing to happen. And so whether or not we disagree on the methods, let's work together. I love that you're here. Give me your opinions. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have another point. This is how we can make it happen. I am sad. I have been stressed. Making this has been heavy on my heart, but I'm hopeful. I am truly hopeful that with the unity that I have seen and witnessed after the tragic death of George Floyd, that we can actually make change. And that starts with you and me. So thank you, Thank you. Thank you. We are loved. And I want to give a special thank you to Angela Thomas. I talked to her. I gave her some of the points that I was thinking about discussing when this project came up to me. And she helped me come up with a few other points that I hadn't considered. There's some people who helped me with just some of the editing process. Like I said, I made a written piece that pretty much follows the same points, a little less rambling, a little more streamlined. I'm going to attach that if you want to read that, but I had people help me edit it. It's my words, but they helped polish it up a little bit because I make a lot of dumb mistakes. But thank you to Angela. Thank you to those people. I appreciate you.